In this tutorial, we're going to look at making a basic wall and colliding into the wall to stop the player going outside our room in the form of a maze. So the first thing we're going to do in here is we're going to add in a new sprite. So I'm going to right click, create, and we're going to go down to sprite, and I'm going to call this one S wall. Now once I've done that, I'm going to click on edit image, and then I'm going to choose a color. I'm going to go with yellow in this option, and then I'm going to click the paint bucket, and we're going to just add in a big block here. Now it's important to make sure you use something like the paint bucket so that the whole object is filled and you don't then miss anything out, because it's going to impact our walls otherwise. So once you've done that, click on close, and we can close this as well. Now we're going to go to our objects this time. We're going to right click, create, and we're going to go down to object here, and we're going to create a wall. So now there's a consistency between our naming, so S is for sprite and O is for object. We're going to bind the wall together with the object, so S wall and O wall, and we're also going to make this one a solid object. Now once we've done that, we can close it, and we're then going to go to our room. Now, the first thing we're going to do on this room is we are going to be adding in a new instance layer, which is here. And what we're going to do is we're going to rename this instance layer, and we're going to call it walls. And then we're going to start dragging some of these in. Now, you'll notice when you start dragging the walls in, what you'll find is you'll end up with a block. Now, you can move these around a little bit, and then you can start to make the outer boundaries. But what you can also do is you can copy and paste. So as you've seen there, if I just zoom back in, too far. If you copy and then paste, you'll notice it creates a duplicate. And this is a very quick way of being able to duplicate little parts, especially if you're building a maze. So if I copy and paste a few things here, and then what we're going to do, we're going to make some now which are going to be for the top. So what I'm doing is I'm making these so that they are 1 pixel, or 1 square rather, in size. Now that I've got the outer part of my wall, what we're going to then do is we're going to now look at focusing on the inside part of the wall. So what I'm doing is I'm just building up a maze very quickly. And you can see I'm not spending a lot of time with this. Now these walls can be made bigger or smaller depending on obviously what you're doing and depending on what your plan is going to show. Please make sure when you are doing this you are following your plan. Now on purpose I am making these here 2 blocks wide, and you can see my player is 2 blocks wide as well. Now there is a reason for this, and hopefully it is going to be a bit of an issue for mine, but we'll soon find out if it actually is. Now you can see this is overlapped slightly, that's fine. That will work, and that will then allow the player to move up to the point there. And also if I just drag that down and drag this one across, you can see that there allows me to create a larger wall here. Now what we need to do is set the collisions. So to do this, we're going to do basic collisions in this video, and in a future video we're going to do more complex collisions. So what I'm going to do is double click on the O player, and we're going to go to add event, and then we're going to go down to collision with the object O wall. Now as we've done this, what we're then going to do is we're going to add any code block in here. I typically like using the jump tool for this. So I put jump to point in, and we leave it as that. Now when we start to play our game, we'll wait for it to compile. And what you'll notice then is your game will be ready to go. So if we look here, I'm literally holding down the W key, and you can see I've stopped moving as soon as I hit the top. If I hit the D key, you can see it's doing the same thing. Now as I've done this, you can see my player is able to go around, no problem at all. What you need to do is you need to make sure that you test your player, and you need to make sure that you can actually make it around all of these walls. Now it might be the case that your player doesn't go right up to the edge and there's a little gap, and that little gap is enough to stop the player moving. Now what you'll need to do in that situation is make the walls a little bit bigger, and you can adjust them. Now there is one other thing you could do, but I'd advise against doing this. If I just zoom into this for a second and move this over, what you can do is you can turn the grids off. Now what you'll notice is when I move this around, it's moving one block at a time, or 64 pixels at a time. If I turn the grids off, it does allow me a bit more of a precise movement. So I can move it, say, halfway. Now if I turn the grids back on, you'll notice this is now halfway through a grid. Now if I try to move this up a little bit, it snaps back, but you can see it's still snapped now the same amount as I've just moved it down. If I turn the grids back off and move it up a little bit more, you can see now I'm more than halfway through this grid. Now the reason I typically don't advise you turning the grids off is because it's easier to position some of your objects when you've got the grids turned on. And especially if you're drawing straight lines and you want to have a straight object like these, I always advise people to leave the grids turned on. It just makes life a lot easier. So that's how you'd make basic collisions in GameMaker with drag and drop.